Uh, John, just continuing, you're going to have to forgive me about not talking and introducing you much, but I wanted to talk a lot about the Wayside Chapel because it's really an extraordinary organization. Let me go back and talk a little bit about the Wayside Chapel. Two things I learned. One of them was that it is a mission of the Uniting Church of Australia. And the second is that there is not only a Wayside in Potts Point, but there's also one in Bondi Beach. So having said that, a little bit of the history of Wayside Chapel. It was started back in 1964 by the Reverend Ted Knopfs, but it started in a single room with a dozen chairs in a block of flats at 29 Hughes Street. And it quickly turned into a chapel, a coffee shop, and a community services resource center. And continued in that mode. And in the late 1990s, the pastor, Ray Richmond, established the first tolerance room to inject drugs in a supervised environment, which of course at that time was against the law. But it eventually led to medical supervised injection center in the Cross and was a direct descendant of the support center that is now in the fire station. That all started around Pastor Ray. In May of 2012, the rebuilt Wayside Chapel took form after a 5-year, $8.2 million fundraising campaign led by I can still remember Graham Long, is sure many people. Graham Long, who was the pastor from 2004 to 2017. And I remember when I first came to Rotary, Graham gave the first address, the first time I'd had any contact with Wayside Chapel. And to say that it was an entertaining and enlightening evening is probably an understatement. But since 2018, July 2018, the Wayside Chapel has been under the beautiful and competent pastorship of our speaker this evening, Pastor Jon Owen. And I wanted to give this background because the Wayside Chapel produces and is a resource to our community that is truly, in my mind, a miracle. We as Rotary support the Wayside Chapel, we support Lou's Place, we support St. John's Community Center. I consider it to be a real blessing and that we are fortunate to be in the epicenter of need and to have competent leadership like John for the Wayside Chapel for the delivery of services and support for those less fortunate in our community. So having said that, I'd like to introduce and turn over to the Reverend Jon Owen, who is the CEO and director of the Wayside Chapel. Welcome, John. We're so pleased to have you this evening.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for that beautiful history of the Wayside, but also that incredibly overly generous description of my leadership here. Thank you so much. Look, I'm just going to give you a bit of an update, and I will also like to weave in a bit about my story and also explain a bit about how we're coping through the last 18 months, particularly the last 7 days. Some of you may not know, but this morning we reopened. We've been closed for a few days because the first positive case came into our buildings. Someone came in who was COVID positive, and that has certainly had to make a shift again in how we operate and deliver services and reach out to the community. And we've now reopened the doors today in a way that has worked closely with the Kirkton Road Centre, and which means that whilst occasionally staff may have to quarantine, we won't have to close our doors again for the foreseeable future. But Wayside, often one of the phrases of Graham Long, my predecessor and raconteur, co-conspirator in this, he would say that Wayside's not much like a church, which might suit you if you're not much like a Christian. I hope you don't mind. I might go and take a bit more religious route tonight. Is that okay with you all?
Sure.
Okay.
Yours.
Good. Excellent. So, look, I came to the Wayside after a 20-year journey of living and working in some pretty rough and tumble communities, first for a decade in Springvale, which was in the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne. At the time, you know what, I really should have bought a property in every place I lived in, because now they're all gentrified and worth a mozza, right? But Springvale was a fairly rough and tumbled neighbourhood, a lot of gangs, a lot of drugs in there. And the reason I moved into there was I was really searching at the time in my life for purpose, as a young 19, 20-year-old does. I saw a lot of my friends traveling overseas and doing their overseas experiences, and that just wasn't for me. And being raised in a Christian family, I thought, well, you know, we go to this place called church on Sunday every day, Sunday every week. I wonder what the other 6 days I can spend my time doing. So I began to look around and found an organization that was really passionate about reaching out with love and compassion to its community. And that's where they moved into some of these communities. They opened up their homes and they shared their houses with people who were falling in and out of homelessness or needed somewhere to stay. And I really came alive and really found my passion and my purpose, and some of the basis for that, which continues on into where Wayside is today, because we say that we get to have a say in the halls of power because our feet are firmly planted in the gutter. And we see in the Bible, in Philippians chapter 2, it says, you know, the example we follow is the one of Jesus, who didn't consider equality with God as something to be grasped, but rather emptied himself and took on the form of a servant. And, you know, that's the kind of way we take, is we are able to, I mean, I'm essentially just the minister of a church, and I get called up on the ABC or to appear on television, and they ask questions about how is the city responding to its most vulnerable, because fame and stardom is not something we seek, but to serve our neighbourhoods and our communities as best we can, reaching out to them with love and compassion. So that I took that example. We ran a home for, first of all, for men who were in and out of prison and coming off drugs. And that was the good old 90s, the heyday. So we're doing home detoxes with buckets and blankets and hammers and nails back in the day. Very much train spotting style, and pretty wild and woolly times. And then we ran another house for men who were seeking asylum, who were from various countries, including I was reminded of the Olympics recently. In the year 2000, we took in a whole bunch of Sierra Leonean Olympians who were defecting from their teams. And there was an evening there where, as a minister, the federal police had surrounded the house, and as they were trying to lock these guys up before they'd had their fair day in court. So we hatched a quick plan up, and I rushed off, and I dressed up in my best gym gear, and I pretended to be one of the Olympians and ran down the street, and I had 4 federal police cars taking me off. Lucky the corner was only 50 meters away, so I was able to get around it. And because they confused me for a Sierra Leonean Olympian, whereas I'm just a very unfit Indian. And in the time that the cars went around the corner, we were able to get the guys to another safe house. Always makes me chuckle when the Olympics come around. I relive that moment. So that was my Olympic moment. So then we took and it was through that time I met a young lady, and she was running a little flat for women who were either taking a break or trying to get away from abusive relationships with their partners. And you know, you could say it was love at first crisis. And Lisa and I got engaged and married in about a year or 2 after that. And when we were looking at where we wanted to have our honeymoon, we we went off. At least I wanted to sit on a beach in Fiji and drink a Mai Tai or something. But Lisa had other ideas, and I was going to work on my suntan. But Lisa said, no, this is more than just boy meets girl and sails off into the sunset. This is two people who are serving God, who are brought together, and let's begin our married life in the way we want to continue, which is to continue to serve others in our community. So she had the idea we'd go off and volunteer in Calcutta with Mother Teresa. No, there's no honeymoon brochure that lists Calcutta as an option. I don't know how she found it. And so off we went, and we were volunteering in the mornings at the Home for the Dying. I don't know, has anyone been to Calcutta? Can you raise your hand?
Yeah.
So you see it up close, and Lisa loved it. I couldn't stand it in that it was so confronting as someone of Indian heritage to say, wow, but for a few decisions, and also the mysterious work of the British East India Company, my family would have never left India and made it over to Australia. There's another story about my grandfather was part of the indentured labour that moved between the colonies and actually worked a rubber plant estate in Malaysia. That's how I was born, in Malaysia. But that's another story for another day. So there you would serve in the mornings, and in the basement of and here's the thing, the work that was being done was so universally recognized that people from all walks of life wanted to come and be a part of it. And even the Hindu authorities, who were very anti-Christian or anything other than Hindu, particularly around that period of history, even the basement of one of their temples was given to this work in the Home for the Dying, which is in the basement of the temple of Kali, which is the goddess of death, very appropriate. And these people are brought in and placed on stretchers in the last days, moments, weeks of their life. And then the nuns give you about 5 minutes training, and you are there just to be with them through that journey and to do whatever it takes over that time. So that could be bathing, cleaning, singing, toileting, just caring for these people as they died and trying to ease their pain a little bit. And I remember once I was trying to speak a bit of Bengali, and it was a complete disaster. Unfortunately, I am monolingual, and that's not even English. I think it's called Shrine, and it's what I speak fluently. And as I was trying to speak Bengali, this little nun walked up, about 3 foot tall, elbowed me in the ribs, called me out the back like I was in the school principal's office, and she said, "I can hear what you're trying to do, and I need to ask you, don't you think that person is already suffering enough?" And she said, "Listen, you don't speak Bengali. That's blatantly obvious. This man does not speak English. How about instead every action that you perform for this man communicates to them that they are deeply loved?" And I think, wow, there are a lot worse ways to live your life every day. And that is something I try and do. I think I'm now 45. I think I've got that ratio to 10% of what I do communicates love and 90% doesn't, but I've hopefully got a few more decades that I can shift that balance a little bit more. The other thing I notice is in that space is you can argue religion at an intellectual level, but at a heart-serving level, you just let all the adjectives and nouns drop away and you focus on the verbs. What is it to love? What does it mean to care for someone? And that has always guided me well. Now, in the afternoons, you'd take a little lunch break. Then in the afternoons, we would go into Calcutta to the orphanage. Beautiful place, the orphanage. You get to care for these babies and you learn what your heart is for, right? It's for loving and it's for hurting. And you see these small emaciated babies brought in, and it's your job to love them and to nurture them and to feed them. And then after about 2 hours of that, you get a little tea break where they give you this incredibly milky, sugary tea, which is what guarantees diabetes for everybody over there, and a couple of biscuits. And they call it tiffin time, which is a very old English phrase that they still love. So there's still tiffin time over there. And we were eating our tiffin break one day, and one of the nuns there she was in her early 70s, and she was really sore in the legs and a bit stiff through the hips, and she was hitting one of her legs. And I said, "Oh, look, you got arthritis?" She said, "No, it's very sore from all the running we do." And I say, "Oh, okay, your fitness is part of your regime. Is it you go for a nun fun run every morning or something?" And she said, No. It's not like any like that. She said every morning after prayers, and they get up some ridiculous hour, 4 a.m., and do some prayers. They go, after they say their prayers, they have a bit of breakfast, then they go to the train station, which is Howrah Railway Station, which is featured on that Patrick Swayze movie, City of Joy. You can see that. It's the world's busiest railway station in terms of the number of people that come and go. And they say that, she said, every morning we run around those platforms. And the reason is because as a result of poverty and desperation, there is a chance that a young unwed mother may abandon a little baby, nearly always a little baby girl, onto that platform and disappear because of the shame and the threat that child would be under if that girl were to present that baby to her family. And she said, we race every morning because if there is a baby there, we want to win that race. She said, because we're not the only ones racing, right? There are also gangs out there racing, and they're looking for these children. And she said, look, if we get these children, then humanity wins, right? These kids are brought in here, they're loved, they're fed, they're taught about the Christian.
Something happened?
Lost him.
I think we've lost John.
Lost transmission, Thomas.
We'll come back.
I just texted him. Hang on for a second. I'm sure he's probably aware. Hang on. Okay, he's having to reestablish himself. He just left the meeting, so he'll be back.
Here he is.
There he is. We left him in Calcutta on the train station. We'll see where he picks
what
up.
happened there? Sorry about that. I mean, I'm on the same. So, those babies are cared for and loved if the nuns find them. And if not, they end up in the home for the dying within a decade and a half. And, I just thought there is someone in their mid-70s who is living a life with far more passion and purpose than many 30-year-olds I meet out on the streets of Sydney. That can be a guy. That was a real inspiration to me, her life. And, often the literature of Mother Teresa would be lying around those buildings, and you would pick it up and read it. And often she would come out to Sydney and to London and to New York, and she'd open up her addresses saying, the lepers, you need me far more than the lepers of Calcutta. Wow. How could you say that after what I just shared with you, But she used to also say loneliness is the leprosy of the West. You see, poverty isn't just about a lack of cash. It's about a sense of despair. It's about a lack of hope. It's a lack of vision. It's a lack of purpose. It's a lack of believing that there can be any different tomorrow than the one you have today, right? And is it any wonder that our rates of depression and anxiety and suicide are skyrocketing through the roof in a country that is surrounded by affluence and yet lacks so much passion and purpose and hope? So many who walk through our doors at Wayside have lost all hope. They've abandoned all hope. And unfortunately, many of the places we've set up to care for people, in the Western world, leave them feeling more alienated than before, right? They come in and they say, I'm struggling, which is a big thing for anyone to admit. And then we say, look here, take this pamphlet or attend this program and you'll be fine. You know, I remember burying a 21-year-old boy when I was a young pastor, and I looked around the room, and it was only 3 generations of his family, none of whom had had a job, and there were 3 welfare workers in the room: his parole officer, his probation officer, and his youth welfare officer. And I looked at it and I said, who did this guy have who he could call a friend? You know, who would walk along? When that guy asked the question, who is my neighbor? Sadly, the answer was no one any different from him, no one who could lead him into a new direction. You know, you can't be what you can't see in this place. So that's Wayside. When you walk into the place, we have so many people from a whole range and spectrum of society. And I love our volunteers, which is over 600 in normal times between our 2 sites at Bondi and King's Cross, where there's love available, where people are met. You know, Graham used to say, no one is a problem to be solved, they're a person to be met. And we look people in the eyes and we know their names and we care for them. And we don't ask what's wrong with you, but we say, welcome to the place where you are loved. And, you know, if we say someone walks away from our place feeling met rather than worked on, it's been a good day. And we might see a miracle occur where they begin to change. And so that's what we're about. And so that's really become a real challenge for us for the last 18 months, because we work so hard on creating a safe place and a safe environment, and where people can come and gather and just rest for a moment from the wildness of life as it falls apart. And now we can't let them sit inside. You know, we have to say, stay at arm's length, stay a distance away. But so we've adapted. You know, 2/3 of our teams are now in outreach capacity, walking the streets, which takes us back to the history of Wayside, which is the shepherds of the streets, with which some of you may be very familiar, and where we'd walk out and care for people out there. And also we placed over the years hundreds, if not thousands, of people into public housing. And now we're just connecting with them there. You know, there was a story last year where a young single mother with 4 kids in a little commission flat in the height of lockdown, one of her kids got nits, which means all of her kids got nits. And she was too afraid to go out. So we just took over 1 bottle of nit lotion, you know, which all of a sudden, you know, if she walked out on the street, she would have received more scorn. The lockdown is very re-traumatizing for so many of our people, because life on the streets means you're either invisible or you are hyper visible, which means people will go out of their way either to ignore you, or people beeline for you and tell you, you know, you're in the way and that you're hopeless. So going out again, particularly a single mum with 4 kids, remember the first lockdown, everyone would say, how irresponsible of you to be out there. Whereas what could you do? You can't leave 3 toddlers unattended at a home while you run out and get shampoo. So they're just little acts of love. Just remind people, and everything we do, everything we say reminds people that they're loved and they're not forgotten, and that they're a part of a community and they're a part of something so much bigger than them. So over the last little while, that's been our real big focus, is keeping people alive. The demand for pastoral care has skyrocketed. I think we've all learnt you know, I've all felt the pain of disconnection from our families, which is the pain our people often feel every single day. You know, people don't end up, no one wakes up, or no school project, a kid says, when I grow up, I want to be homeless. You know, it usually comes through, you know, a whole range of issues that go wrong in people's lives, a lack of a community or a family that can support them. And I don't say that judgmentally. You know, sometimes if 2 or 3 kids are struggling in a family unit, they can maybe be pushed. But, you know, if that's 4th or 5th kid, you know, pretty quickly the system's capacity to support someone falls apart. So we are often, you know, people say, you are the only family who has stood by me. And we don't take that as a badge of honor, but we see that as a hallmark of our legacy that we have in people's lives. So, you know, that's the real focus for us now, continuing our outreach. You might not have noticed I'm wearing my King's Cross Rotary hoodie here tonight. This is the most amazing piece of hoodiness that I've ever owned. This is the one that David presented to me, and we took a photo in it out the front there. Hello, David. And yeah, look, they're very popular and actually very warm. And would yesterday was nearly 30 degrees. Today I'm wearing it again. It's freezing. And yeah, the vicissitudes of life out there. I'm lucky. A garage is still pretty warm. Got a little blower heater out here keeping me warm. But I just want to thank Rotary for your partnership with us over the decades, over the time. Look, we look forward to one of the vans you gave us is being used to help deliver all those care packs and to people out there doing it hard through these moments. And look, I look forward to exploring. You know, I was having some conversations with Bridget a little while ago, and you know, I think we'll be fingers crossed. We'll be definitely doing more with you, particularly as our buildings become more and more accessed. We've had to change our planning, and as you will notice, look, I'll be frank with you, it's everyone's right to choose, but even something as simple as trying to get everyone on my team to vaccinate has been a challenge. And there's a lot of hesitancy amongst some of them. It's been a real struggle. I value your support and your prayers if you're a praying person, because I'm getting pretty close to having to mandate it, and got to get some legal advice in that area. Things as a pastor I never assumed I would be doing through this time. But also the big change, and I think we're all going to have to come to terms with this, is, you know, we've moved now to a policy, it appears, where we have to treat COVID as endemic. So we have to assume that everybody who we're interacting with, everybody who we're inviting into our buildings is a COVID positive person. So that's really challenged us. So we've got all the protective equipment now, everything we could need, but so we have to maintain vigilance in that place. But the human touch is gone for the next little while, sadly. And but the human connection will remain through this time. And I'm so glad that we won't have to close our doors now under this new regime, but we do look a bit like aliens as we greet you out the front at the moment with our face shields and our face masks on. And yeah, it's and encouraging members of the community, because what we're not getting anywhere, and ACOS just said it today again, is we're not getting any of the data. So all the COVID is prevalent in the Aboriginal community right now in the inner city. And so we're really worried. I spent the last decade out in Mount Druitt. Two kids in my youth club passed away last week in their early 20s as well. So it's a really trying time for everybody involved. So, and there's no easy ways forward. I'm not having a go at any one of our politicians or leaders at the moment. You know, I wouldn't want their job. We all reckon we could do a better job than them right now. But stay safe. That's what I can urge you to do. And we'll get through this. We'll get through it. I think today was picnic day and we got rain, didn't we? So thanks, everyone. Any questions?
John, I guess maybe I'll start the question session. I'm reading an interesting book right now. It's called The Foundations of Knowledge by A.J. Grayling, one of my favorites. This is actually the birthday gift for my wife. And it talks about the knowledge paradox. The more knowledge that we have, the more that we realize the extent of our ignorance. And I'm finding that in my own life in so many ways. It just comes at you from many different standpoints. I mean, we never envisioned anything like COVID, for example, or the fact that we were going to have to return to our roots, as I'm glad that Wayside is doing. And I'd like to open up to our club members to chat with you about not only what you're doing, but how we see ourselves helping that process, helping others. So I'm going to open the floor to anyone who has a question of Jon. I'll just keep quiet and let everybody else do the talking. Kenneth, do you want to start?
Jon, thank you for your heartfelt address. It really touched me. On a practical level, you've got Bondi and you've got the King's Cross. You've got employees and you've got volunteers. Let's address the employees first. What number of volunteers do you have at the two places of employees?
Employees, we currently have about 120.
And how are you able to deploy them right now? Are they deployed from home, or how's that all working?
So we currently have everyone who has a office job working from home, and the only ones coming into our buildings are me, 3 of the senior team. We have a general manager now in place, and then our frontline workers.
Okay, so those frontline workers, they're following up on obviously the people that you've been dealing with in the past. So you've got them documented, you know where they live. And are those records pretty good?
Yes.
All right. So you're actually knocking on their door, are you, with services? Or making contact by phone or whatever?
We initially make contact by phone, or they phone us, and our outreach teams will schedule appointments to help them sort through, or just visit them. We even pay just short visits are important through this time.
So the help you would have given them on site is the help you're giving them in the home differently? Is it food parcels? Is it practical things, counselling, obviously, and care and love and interest and listening? Is it different? Is it much different to what you were doing on site?
Well, the difference really, look, practically no, in terms of some of the services we're providing. What the building really did provide was the groups, the parties, the choir, the band, even the funerals that we can't conduct right now as well.
Yeah, okay. All right, so it's very challenging, and obviously it's less efficient, isn't it? Extremely less efficient.
Yes. Well, everything's less efficient through this time. I'm sure you've noticed that, Ken. Spontaneity has gone out the window. There's no water cooler chat anymore. Everything is scheduled.
Yeah. All right, and where do the volunteers fit into this? Are you able to draw on them?
Yeah, so we've still got volunteers coming in. We've not for the next week or two, but obviously less volunteer shifts are available because we'd had volunteers helping. Volunteers currently help on the front desk and preparing the food. We're just about to launch. I forgot to mention too, Ken, everyone, we've been helping accompany our visitors who would like to get vaccinated. We've also been partnering with Ozanam Centre and Kirkton Road Centre and St Vincent's Homeless Health to help get the homeless population vaccinated. Currently, their vaccination rates are nearly twice that of Eastern Suburbs residents.
Wow.
So there's been a very good uptake and a very good public health campaign there. And I'm really proud of the way our teams have taken the leadership role in that space. It's been wonderful. What we're also going to offer volunteers to walk, fully vaccinated volunteers to walk people to the vaccination clinics, to accompany them there, and to care for the aftercare as well, in case someone swoons and collapses. And also, the next thing we're going to launch next week is walks, because so often we say, how can we help you? Do you need the shower, or do you need this? Or once that's finished, here's your food, now move. So which just breaks everyone's heart, because that's so not what we're about. But we're going to offer walk and talk. So volunteers are going to walk just around the block a couple of times with some of our people. So that's going to be launched hopefully next week.
Very good. Thank you. Very practical. Thank you for that, Jon.
So, Jon, just to just to continue on from what Ken was saying, so the people are allowed to come down to the centre now. Is that correct? I wasn't sure, what lockdown meant for that, but they're not allowed to have a meal there, like you used to provide meals and.
We still are providing the meals,
but they're taking them home.
There is access to the showers and the bathrooms and clothes and emergency relief, and also assistance with either housing or the hotel system is back up and running, which is wonderful. So if people want to get off the streets and they fit the eligibility criteria, they can. We've also worked closely with the Haymarket Centre. They're taking non-residents because we're seeing a significant increase in demand for food and housing services amongst international students through this time. So the Haymarket Centre has a hotel for non-residents, but unfortunately, including the Holiday Inn, where we should be getting together, has all seen positive cases of people getting the coronavirus and people having to go into, which is different to the hotel system, is the quarantine system. And we're also supporting some in the quarantine system as well, because getting our people to stay in a locked room for 2 weeks presents challenges.
And just one other thing, John, you said some of your staff won't get vaccinated. Is it, what's generally the reason why they won't? Is it just lack of opportunity, or they object to being vaccinated, or what's the main reason?
It's not one size fits all. We've got some who are concerned, genuinely concerned with their health status already. We also have some who are very nervous about it, as they're young women who are a bit scared. They want to have babies and they're a bit worried about some of what they're reading. And then we've only got 2 or 3 baked in anti-vaxxers, as they would be called. So it is a challenge though, because and unfortunately I'm being driven to make a choice that look, I could just sit back and let the net close. As you can see, I think our Premier this morning didn't want to call a press conference, but did to walk back from statements made by the Deputy today. But I just want to be a bit more fair and in front. I want to lead through this and have conversations with everyone who's infected by this.
John, can I ask a question, John?
Yes, Warwick. Sorry, I'm just eating some zucchini chips.
Good on you. Well done. Look, thanks for that recognition about the hoodies and the underwear that Dale and I put together for you. David came down and both of you put a hoodie on. You look really. You both look like 2 criminals, I have to tell you.
Right.
But
well, I usually refuse to be in a photo with someone more handsome than myself. So, that was the first and last time I get a photo with David. Right?
No, it was very good. So my question is really a direct one. In COVID times, with our club, we're good at doing the little jobs. So have you got anything that you think we could help you with right now in this COVID time?
Look, I think there was a conversation in the background at the moment saying if you could get more hoodies, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
that would be very much appreciated. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, okay.
And,
well, I did
this is our
to...
biggest number one issue is no one's traveling. So the little shampoos and the little conditioners, they're like gold. If you can find any, we would very much appreciate just bringing a bag full of those, because no one's catching a plane anymore.
Okay, right, got that.
I've got a stack of those here, John, for you, but I've got a stack of stuff here for you, but I can't come over the harbour bridge.
I would just add,
you wouldn't be able to.
Okay.
John, can I just add something? From July, I was given work by Rotary. I'm an assistant governor, Western Harbour, looking after 7 Rotary clubs. And one of the things is by end of August, I have been going to meetings. That's why I haven't been coming to King's Cross meetings, because like sometimes I go from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, one day in 2 meetings. And one of the things I'm raising this is actually, it was so happy that I'm a member of King's Cross Rotary Club. As an assistant governor, normally when I go to those meetings, I'm just supposed to sit there. According to my protocol, I just have to listen. But when they start talking, I can't stop being like one of the members and contributing. And one of the things, Bowed has actually started copying your way of life. Because when I was there, they were saying there are so many homeless people now, people with mental health problems in Bowed area. And Bowed Rotary Club didn't know what to do. And I actually told them about Wayside Chapel, what you are doing. And they really took it up. They went looking for pastors in all the local churches. And now they're actually involved with those local churches. And this model, I got it from King's Cross. And also I told them about how we raised money for other churches like St. John's Church during the dog show, other things. So now all those clubs, I go there, I mention Wayside Chapel, St. John Church pastors, and they are now, everyone is looking for those local charities. Or else, like Bowd said, they were dealing with the council and they were getting nowhere. And they were also saying where near the train station in Bowd, because of lockdown, it was becoming filthy. People are not feeding. Now they're having a project. And another one I also talked about is what we did on this club last year. I say people are not coming for dinners and everything, and Rotarians are very generous. So I said, how about if you just put in $50 a month? So some clubs are actually emulating that and doing that. And thank you for.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, David.
I might invite you as one of the guest speakers. I will invite you as a guest speaker in one of those clubs here.
Oh, that would be an honor. You're a good silent speaker. So
yes.
Actually, David, thank you so much for that for those comments, because I think that's that's our contribution as Rotarians to the community, is to help spread the knowledge base that we have and the contacts with people like John and Wayside Chapel. I mean, there's lots of opportunity out there and very little experience and knowledge. And if we can facilitate that exchange, then I consider that to be a great challenge and a great accomplishment.
Mm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other comments out there? Anybody want to say anything? You might as well get John with his mouth full, so you got a chance to talk before he does.
Bridget.
Huh?
And was
Bridget,
David had his hand up?
John. Just wanted to say nice to see you again, and thank you again for all the time you spent with me. It was about a year ago, and I think it was just after lockdown, or also during lockdown, when you kind of showed me the house. And I'm telling everyone about Wayside Chapel and what you do, because it was such an inspiring moment. And I'm looking forward every week to your Inner Circle newsletter, and I think it's just amazing stuff you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for the way everyone just continues to pay it forward. And I just can't thank you enough.
Well, John, once again, I want to thank you for your comments this evening. Just a couple things that came to my mind here. First of all, I think it's really, this COVID has forced all of us to rethink where we are and, in a sense, circle us back to our roots. I know that's really true with the Rotary experience as well. We've been innovating and trying to go back to community-based needs and how we can best meet them. And I really like the idea that Wayside is also getting its people out into the streets for for short visits. It's overcoming that loneliness and poverty of the West. It doesn't take a lot, but it takes an effort to get out into the streets and do it. And I'm really glad that Wayside is doing that. I'm hoping that that's something that will survive COVID. And I want to also assure you that more hoodies are on the way. That turned out to be not only a home run for us, but it's very satisfying when you see someone walking along the street, nice and warm, with a Rotary emblem on his sleeve. It's I don't know, it's a satisfying feeling. And John, one last point. Thank you for confirming that it's important to have friends in low places. Really, it's very affirming and very reassuring. And I want to thank you for taking time out to speak to our club. David, this is a guy, once again, you need to get, your Rotary clubs tuned into. There's a real need here and a real connection. John, thanks again for taking time to update us, to visit with us, to reassure us, and to act as a fellow sojourner through this difficult time that we find ourselves. Thanks again.